Recently, Ronda Rousey was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, and to my surprise, many people did not agree with the decision. People bring up how she fought in a weak females bantamweight division and how when she did lose, she was never able to bounce back. But aside from those two aspects, Ronda Rousey is the reason women's MMA is popular today, and that in itself is a huge accomplishment. Hey guys, it's Keon, and today I'm going to be talking about how amazing Ronda Rousey actually was, because it's something I feel like many people forget because of the way her career ended. Prior to this, Ronda Rousey was a decorated judo fighter. She even won a bronze medal in the Beijing Olympics. Now, we know that not every Olympian crosses over to MMA with amazing results, but after winning her first 3 amateur fights via armbar in the first round, Ronda showed promise in being a successful MMA fighter. She went on to build a pro record of 4-0 all within 2011. Did I forget to mention that all of those wins were by first round armbars? That's correct. Ronda Rousey was quickly building a reputation as a girl who would rip anyone's arm off within a round, and to be honest, it excited me and a lot of other MMA fans. At this time, Ronda was making the most noise in women's MMA since Gina Carano and Chris Cyborg fought back in 2009. After her first 4 wins, Ronda started calling out Miesha Tate, who was the Strikeforce Women's Bantam champion at the time. The two immediately did not like each other, and that started one of the first huge rivalries in women's MMA. All this hype led to a monumental title between Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate on March 3rd, 2012. The fight went longer than Ronda's first 4 fights, but eventually she finished Miesha Tate off in the first round with one of the most disgusting armbars I have ever witnessed in MMA. Following this win, the Ronda Rousey hype train built really quick. Strikeforce set up another match for Ronda with Sarah Kaufman on August 18th, 2012. The fight was a huge spectacle mostly because of Ronda Mania. She appeared on Conan, she had her own all-access special, appeared on ESPN's Body Issue, and overall was talking huge trash which garnered many viewers to the event. She said this about her opponent Sarah Kaufman: "If I get her in a choke, I'm gonna hold on to it until she's actually dead." This event was so huge that it caught the interest of Dana White, who prior to knowing about Rousey said never in response to a journalist who asked, "When are we gonna see women in the UFC?" In fact, Dana was so intrigued with Ronda Rousey that he attended her fight against Sarah Kaufman. Now imagine this, a female fighter who was 5-0 in MMA with just over 2 years of MMA training is now the talk of the town in the MMA world. This was a recipe for disaster if Ronda lost this fight against Sarah Kaufman, but at the same time it would be understanding since so much pressure was placed on her so quickly. But Ronda Rousey did it again. She beat Sarah Kaufman 54 seconds into the first round. By what, you ask? Yeah, you already know the answer. So one can imagine how much Ronda's stock grew after this fight. I'll tell you this, it grew so much that she's the reason Dana White ate his words and started a females bantamweight division in the UFC. She was promoted as a UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion and had her first scheduled fight against Liz Carmouche for UFC 157. Let me bring up some points about this event that will tell you a lot about the times we were in. I remember when this event was announced, many MMA fans did not like how a women's championship fight was headlining the card. Especially a card that had Dan Henderson and Lyoto Machida as the co-main event. People were saying, "Oh, it's really disrespectful to be having 2 legends fight below a women's championship." But I saw it as this. Women's MMA is new, and many people do not like new because they don't know what it is. In fact, when this fight was announced, I was really excited because it showed evolution in the sport, and more importantly, it brought more MMA to the market. So UFC 157 went down on February 23rd, 2013, and before Ronda finished Liz Carmouche via armbar in the first round, once again, Liz Carmouche had Rousey in huge trouble in the beginning of the round. I mean, she almost secured a rear naked choke on Ronda Rousey. Imagine, if Ronda had lost her first fight in the UFC, everything would have changed. But it didn't, and after this fight, Ronda went on to defend her belt 5 more times after, which included a rematch win against Miesha Tate, and where we saw Ronda go past the first round for the first time, her first knockout win against former wrestling Olympian Sarah McMahon, and of course the combined 30-second destruction of Alexis Davis and Kat Zingano. Now, I really want to go into detail on UFC 190 because for me, UFC 190 was the event that changed Ronda's life forever. It's the event where I saw Ronda go from rock star to superstar. At UFC 190, Ronda flew all the way to Rio de Janeiro to fight the Brazilian, Bethe Correia. This fight had a lot of steam prior to it actually happening. Bethe Correia basically built a resume on beating Ronda Rousey's teammates and was looking to also beat Ronda to finish all the 4 horsewomen, even though she only fought 2 of them at that point. Ronda was definitely aware, but she didn't really seem to care. When she went to Rio de Janeiro for fight week, she was loved by all the Brazilian fans, which is rare for an American fighter who's coming to Brazil to fight a Brazilian. Yes, that's how big Ronda Rousey was. In fact, I think there were more Ronda Rousey fans in Brazil than Bethe Correia fans. So come night of the fight, it's August 1st, 2015, and Ronda absolutely demolishes Bethe Correia by knocking her out in the first round. Not just knocking her out, but face-planting her to the floor. After her win, the Brazilian crowd was cheering for Ronda, and for me, this moment foreshadowed the fame that Ronda was about to attain after this. Like seriously, Ronda was everywhere at this point. She appeared in Furious 7 and Entourage, she was doing talk shows, magazine covers, advertisements, and she even hosted an episode of SNL. Imagine, an MMA fighter hosting an episode of Saturday Night Live. She made it. As for MMA, Ronda seemed unstoppable. Her fights became more of, when is she gonna finish her opponent, than is she able to beat her opponent. She also started talking about fighting Floyd Mayweather because she believed she could beat him. The greatest boxer of our generation. Of course, the Ronda and Cyborg potential fight hype was growing and many people genuinely had no idea who would win that fight. I would say that if Ronda had won 2 more fights, a Cyborg vs Rousey super fight could have happened. Now this was a lot. On top of this, she was having a lot of personal drama as well. Her mom made comments about Ronda's coach, Edmond Tarverdian, saying things like, he's a terrible coach and a bad person. Ronda was also dating UFC fighter Travis Brown, and around this time, Travis's ex-wife accused him of domestic abuse, even posting some pictures of her bruises on Instagram. Now, this also hurt Ronda's image as she was a role model for women, and dating an alleged abuser definitely is not something many women praise. So a lot was going on in Ronda's life, and on top of this, she had a 3rd fight booked by the end of the year against decorated boxer Holly Holm. UFC 193 was on November 15th, 2015 in Melbourne, Australia. Ronda's star power was so huge at this point. The pay-per-view did over 1 million buys and the attendance was the largest attendance in UFC history with over 56,000 people. The stage was huge and to be honest, I didn't really think Holly had a chance. I thought Holly was a good fighter, but prior to the Ronda fight, she picked up a couple of decision wins that weren't too impressive enough to tell me that she was a serious challenger for the belt. In many ways, it felt like the UFC was pushing Holly Holm too fast, and that's why Ronda was such a huge favorite coming into the fight. Now, I remember watching this fight in my house with all my roommates and my girlfriend at the time. The first round passed and Ronda was not able to impose her game on Holly, mostly because of Holly's boxing. The second round came and I remember Holly ducked one of Ronda's punches that had Ronda drop to one knee, and I was so shocked. Ronda did not look like the unstoppable fighter that we all believed she was. It was obvious that she had a huge hole in her stand-up and that was being exploited by Holly. And when Holly finally threw that head kick and finished Ronda with punches, I fucking screamed and woke up my girlfriend. Me and my roommates were absolutely shocked. I may have to put this upset over GSP and Matt Serra simply because GSP didn't yet develop himself as an unstoppable fighter like Rousey did. But this definitely changed a lot for Ronda Rousey. For the next year following that fight, she was absolutely gone from the public eye. It was crazy how fast she came crashing down, and to be honest, I felt bad for her. There were so many people going against Ronda, some saying she deserved it because her attitude and that she was never really a good fighter. The fight with Amanda Nunez for the belt at UFC 207 definitely did not help Ronda at all. In fact, after that fight, her MMA career was officially over, and talks of her being an all-time great slowly disintegrated into the abyss. A lot of people will say this. Ronda never fought elite competition, she was a one-trick pony, and she had a very bad attitude as a champ. But I see it as this. The competition Ronda fought was elite for its time. Obviously, the competition in women's MMA has grown a lot, but that's the same thing with every sport. Royce Gracie was amazing in the come-up of the UFC, but imagine prime Royce Gracie fighting in today's UFC. Oh, wait. We did see that. But does that mean Royce Gracie losing to Matt Hughes makes him a bad fighter? Hell no. He's 100% still a legend. And maybe Ronda was a one-trick pony, but she held that one trick with dominance, and because of that, 12 people in a row were unable to figure her out. And the whole "she has a bad attitude" is such a bad excuse when you look at Conor, the Diaz brothers, Kobe Covington, Brock Lesnar, and much more. Trash talk is part of building a fight, and that's basically all Ronda was trying to do. So if you like Conor trash talking to build up a fight, but you hate it when Ronda does it, that shit is so hypocritical. I made this video because I was definitely a huge Ronda Rousey fan during her prime, because honestly, it was an incredible and exciting reign. The problem is that so many people look past that because of the way her MMA career ended. But I'll tell you this, Ronda is the reason women's MMA is huge. I mean, look at the other female sports and compare it to women's MMA. Women's MMA has one of the greatest fan bases out of all women's sports, and that's because of Ronda Rousey. She made Dana White eat up his words by showing him that there is a place for women in MMA. You can even ask Miesha Tate, and I bet you she will credit Rousey for building up women's MMA to where it is today. And if she doesn't, she's just being very petty. Aside from being huge in women's MMA, she became a superstar athlete, and at the time, MMA fans never thought that an MMA fighter would get this much coverage. So when the question of if Ronda Rousey deserves to be in the UFC Hall of Fame comes to mind, I just think that shouldn't even be a question because her resume speaks for itself. My name is Keon, and this is my take on how good Ronda Rousey actually was. If you agree or disagree or have something else to add, I would love to read it in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It will help me so much. If you want more content, hit the subscribe button down below and also click that bell notification so whenever I do upload something, you will be the first to receive that notification. I want to thank everyone who's been watching this video from the beginning to the end of it, and I guess I'll just see you guys later.